fuck that. Joe Biden already bailed you guys out the first fucking time because Donald Trump screwed you over his first term in office. You guys seen what the fuck he did to you, and then you voted him back in again, and you think that we're supposed to have some sympathy points for you going on CNN crying because he's fucking your shit up again? Really? Get the fuck out of here with that shit. The farmers in motherfucking Nebraska, Wisconsin, all of these states that are being affected, and they're trying to come on social media and the news stations crying out for sympathy points because they fucked themselves over by voting for this orange little bitch. Nah, it's too late for that shit now. Suck it the fuck up and struggle for the next 4 years. DC interviewed North Carolina farmers about Trump, trade wars, and their markets. And as a North Carolina farmer, I'd like to talk about what happened there. I am a small farmer who's worked in agriculture 27 years, including helping other farmers on profitability and growing their markets. I want agriculture to succeed, and the way we get there is by being clear-eyed about what our opportunities are and how our votes will impact what those financial opportunities are. Unfortunately, a lot of my colleagues have allowed themselves to get stuck in an echo chamber.
And I say unfortunately because that echo chamber makes it real tough to make clear-headed decisions about your own finances, never mind farm policy for the whole country. And that MSNBC interview is a really good example, unfortunately. Any farm bailouts should come with really strict audits and fiscal responsibility controls to make sure that money gets used to get businesses back on track. It's important to understand the farmers who showed up to be interviewed that day are not struggling little poor folks. They're big old money around here. It so happens that both of them were born into families that built up multi-generational fortunes and very large property holdings on tobacco, thanks to a New Deal program that guaranteed very high tobacco prices. That New Deal program stuck around until 2004. In farm years, that's yesterday. That could be why they don't seem that fazed by Trump destroying their markets with trade wars. To be frank, their family's wealth was not built by free enterprise. It was built by the American taxpayer. Those are just the facts. I certainly didn't make it that way. And then, those two got born into that taxpayer-created wealth. So they've never had a chance to build the market skills to keep up in a free market anyway. To normal people who have to work for what we have, losing your export market to trade wars will feel like an emergency, because it is. But when your land, wealth, and position as rural spokesman is built on the taxpayer's back and inherited rather than earned, then asking for bailouts probably feels as American as apple pie. But I'm looking at farming's future, and I'm concerned that my colleagues do not realize the backlash that is brewing against agriculture right now because of behavior just like this. What do I mean by lacking business skills? Well, when that guy says 85% of success on my farm comes from God, no, it doesn't. God is very clear on what he thought on the matter. He said you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. Now, from a business point of view, as the farmer, we're the ones who decide what to grow. And two of that guy's biggest crops are tobacco and soybeans. Those are both crops that only work because China buys a lot of them. If I keep growing crops that are only worth anything because we can sell them to China, and then I vote for a guy who promised to start trade wars with China, that's reaping what you sow.
And when someone who says 85% of his success comes from God comes begging me for money, that's how you know God ain't listening. Now, when he complains about environmental protection and how dealing with that is expensive, yeah, it is. That's why the taxpayers try to pay you for that too. Biden put out a lot of free money, grants to help farmers do that. Those climate and conservation grants are one of the first things Trump had Elon Musk get rid of. We all know that using public money to cover your own missteps is a recipe for abuse. That's why any bailout should have some basic financial controls. If we give that guy bailouts, will he use them to build a sustainable business and get his business back on track, growing crops for domestic consumption in the U.S.? Great. Or will he just use them to keep growing soy and tobacco like he's been, then complaining he has to throw it away because the market's gone and come begging for more bailout next year? Now him? I don't know. But I have had encounters with Kim Craigie, and because she's big old money, just know the story I'm about to tell you happened at a big old convention center with her family's name on it. She cornered me with a sob story about how she was trying to grow things and make more money. She really was, but it was just too hard. One time, she tried to grow asparagus, and it was clear from how she told the story that she had not done any homework before she got started. She was shocked at how much work asparagus is to grow, and she was shocked to find out what the going market rate was. Those are things you can and should find out before you commit your land to grow something. But unfortunately, it seems she didn't do that basic homework for herself. So she failed and was still blaming everybody but herself and cussing out the grocery store for wanting to pay a market rate instead of whatever inflated price she felt she deserved. Trial and error and mistakes are always going to be part of the learning process in agriculture. Ain't nothing wrong with that. In fact, I wish we talked about that more. Get rid of the stigma of not always being perfect and messing up sometimes. I tell this story now because it's starting to look like this is a pattern of behavior for her. Make a big mess up, don't take responsibility, blame somebody else. Anyway, in the moment, I was trying to be chill, so I just said, oh, well, I know, that's so crazy. That's why we start with a small plot, right? Because then we don't lose too much money if it doesn't work out. And when I said small plot for commercial asparagus, I was thinking an eighth or maybe a quarter of an acre. You want to start with a suburban backyard-sized area if it's your first time growing a commercial crop of vegetables, because they always turn out to be more work than you thought possible. So you want to start small. And
And start small. I only planted 15 acres. Y'all, her family owns so much land, she thought 15 acres was a small test plot. 15 acres is more property than most Americans will ever own. I just want to point out also, North Carolina has some of the best farmland in the country. You can grow almost anything here.
It's truly a special place, and if I had thousands of acres of North Carolina farmland at my disposal,
And I still couldn't manage to make a buck, wild horses could not drag that information out of me. It takes a special kind of reaching out of touch to go on TV and tell everybody that and complain about that life with a straight face. That's what echo chambers do for you. And when you live in an echo chamber, you can behave in ways that are going to create serious backlash and never realize it until it's too late. I want better things for us here in agriculture, and that starts with taking responsibility for how our actions impact our own finances. To wrap it up, pour salt to the earth was not who showed up for the interview that day. MSNBC, I really appreciate you for actually taking the time to ask tough questions and start to bring some accountability into this conversation. I want you all to know that farmers like the ones you found that day are certainly out there, but they do not speak for all of us in agriculture. So if you ever want to talk to farmers who view ourselves like adults, can take responsibility for our own choices and our own finances, and can have an actual grown-up policy discussion instead of just pouting, call me. If you need farmers in North Carolina, if you need farmers anywhere in the country, call me. I will hook you up. Sarah Tabor out.
farmers are fed up.
With the Trump administration and went to Augusta on Wednesday to protest the funding cuts and unpredictability that his USDA is causing for these farms. 150 farmers and supporters protested outside the state capitol, driving tractors and livestock trailers and carrying signs to draw attention to how President Trump is hurting Maine farms. We've told you before about how Trump's USDA has broken signed contracts that it had with farmers across the country, leaving those farms on the hook for thousands, often tens of thousands of dollars in costs that were supposed to be reimbursed. We've also told you about how the Trump USDA shut down the programs that helped Maine schools and food banks purchase food from local farmers. A lot of Maine farms were already struggling. These cuts from the Trump administration are making it harder for them to survive. A farmer from Monmouth who attended the protests asked, "Who is this working for? Not working people, not farmers." Be sure to like
Situation. It seems that this is happening a lot with the Donald Trump administration. So, I brought you guys a video recently about a farmer who was selling alfalfa, and he was realizing that because of the tariffs, they're going to lose their farm possibly because China is not buying their alfalfa right now. This next farmer, who says he's a Trump supporter, currently still a Trump supporter, wants us to know that we need to share his video because it needs to get out there so that Donald Trump knows what he's about to do is going to hurt small family farms. Check this shit out. A supporter of President Donald Trump voted for him in this election in the last and the one prior to that. However, President Trump is about to allow JBS, the world's most corrupt beef organization, to become publicly traded in America. President Donald Trump will be the president that allows for the complete destruction of the small, independent family farms and cattle ranches if he allows this to go through. Newsflash, Donald Trump does not give a damn about you. But you know who gives even less of a damn about you? Myself and all the other liberals you thought you were owning when you voted for Donald Trump. What we got for you is a bunch of middle fingers, man. We're like, fuck you. We don't care. We don't care if you lose your farm, bro. You voted for Donald Trump. You even said at the beginning of this video, I am a supporter of Donald Trump. Why the hell would we give a damn about your gripes? You're getting exactly what you voted for. I love when I see the memes and the conservatives out there saying, screw you liberals, this is exactly what I voted for. This is exactly what you voted for. I don't know why you're making this video. This should be a thank you video because this is what you voted for. The SEC has already approved it. Now we're just waiting a mere few days for them to allow them to stock exchange. And what's concerning is we haven't heard a word from the Secretary of Agriculture about this. We haven't heard any of the large cattle organizations that represent cattlemen speak out about this. They claim to represent cattlemen. The truth is they only represent the big guys that are bought and paid for by the same organizations, JBS, Cargill, Tyson, National Beef, all the collusion that's happening. Go do a very simple search and you'll see the millions and millions, tens upon millions of dollars that these companies have been ordered to pay for collusion and price fixing, which has cost us our family farms and ranches. And what that costs us as the people who own family farms and ranches is a stable food system. As much as I'm a supporter of many of the other things that Trump is doing, and there you have it. He's a supporter of many of the things Donald Trump is doing. And what he's talking about there is the hate they would just leave it alone and let the free market do its job, everything would be okay. This is going to be so far-reaching, not just because of the Trump administration's tariffs of goods imported into the United States, but it's about the question marks in the days ahead about the retaliatory tariffs that the likes of China, Canada, potentially Mexico, and Europe are going to place on U.S. goods that are either produced, like corn and soybeans, or manufactured and sent overseas.
This might be a hot take, but if you see someone in public that has a MAGA hat, literally don't acknowledge it. I was in Chicago last week and some guy came up to me at a grocery store and he asked me where the avocados are. He was wearing a MAGA hat, literally didn't look at it. And I said, back right corner, have a nice day. Kept walking. And he goes, wait, I have something else to ask you. And I turn around and he just stared at me like he wanted me to say something about his hat. Like he was wanting the attention. So don't give it to them. At this point, there's no election going on. They simply want to engage you so that you argue with them so that they can have this exciting interaction. Because a lot of them don't see politics as dealing with people's lives. They see it as a hypothetical culture war that they are winning right now and they want to flaunt that they are winning, that they are being protected by the current administration. So absolutely do not give into that. Simply pretend like you don't see it. They might touch their hat, they might fiddle with it, they might point to it, they might even say, what do you think of my hat? Say nothing. Just keep walking. It's genuinely like a toddler. When a toddler is engaging in bad behavior, ignore them. Do not give them attention. Don't feed into it. Simply say, hey, I'm not going to talk about that right now. Don't behave that way. And then it stops.
Every action has an equal reaction. Today, farmers are crying. When you go on social media platform, you'll see farmers literally, they're complaining, crying, saying they wish they could turn back the time of time. They wish they can change their vote. Why? Because the new policies are literally affecting them. The tariffs have come in and China has literally turned her back against America. They are no longer buying beef from America. They're no longer buying soybeans from America and other products. So where are these farmers going to sell their products? That is the question. That is the biggest headache most farmers are having right now. And then these tariffs right now, which are already being implemented, they are literally affecting so many farmers. And as a result, when you go to the supermarket, you realize prices have increases, either 2 times, 10 times, as a result of these tariffs. So who pays for the tariffs? It's you, the consumer. That is the reality. I know so many people right now, they're saying, oh, I wish they knew, I wish they could change their vote. But the reality is the die has been cast. Now is the time to pay for the consequences. So what are you going to do now? Simple. You have to learn from this experience. It's painful? Yes. Are farmers going to lose? Are some of the farmers going to lose their farms? Yes. Are some of the farmers going to get losses? Yes. Are some of the farmers going to have difficult time to pay their bills? Yes. Are some of the farmers going to have difficult time to sell their products? Yes. That is the reality. And what they need to do right now is basically wait up for the next 4 years down the line until the next election, and they choose a better person. They choose a person who has the best interest to their heart, the best person who has best policies that are favorable to farmers. That is the reality. The die has been cast. People voted and the new administration is in power and they have put down these policies. So for the next couple of years, people have to tighten their seatbelt and accept the reality and face the consequences. When you're told, when you vote, it has consequences. When you're told, please be careful how you vote. When you are told, when you vote, it's going to affect people in real life. These are the consequences. This is the reality. So what are you gonna do? And I'm sorry for the farmers out there. I know they're suffering right now, but the reality is what you need to do right now is just call your Congress people, ask for them to listen to you, and maybe come up with policies that are going to help in the long run. All right, guys, let me know what you think about this video, and please subscribe.